That was so on this whole.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I don't need to talk loud to the mic, though. I told me that.
No.
We're gonna call the meeting to order. It's 8:30. We've never had this big of a crowd, so bear with us a little bit. Like to adopt the agenda as posted and amended. Make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as posted.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from the previous meeting, 2/20/2025.
Second. And I think, although it's a little bit different format, given the number of folks that want to participate from the community, we're going to open the floor for new business and public participation and comment and field any questions and concerns you all may have.
Do you want to introduce ourselves real quick?
Oh, sure.
Just
I'm
in-
Tanner Romano.
I'm Courtney Satz.
Laura Minor.
Seth.
Like to read this and then I'll provide copies. Shirley Farr was a highly intelligent, well-educated woman who directed the establishment of a number of legacies as part of the planning. As the wording appears on the trustees' current application for funding, one of these legacies was 2/20ths of her estate for the town of Brandon, Vermont, to be used by it primarily for proper sewage disposal, drainage of swamps, and other sanitary improvements. And any amounts not needed and expended for such purposes shall be used for spraying trees or in the general improvement of the village in ways not sufficiently provided for by taxation. In accordance with 24 VSA sections 2431 and 2432, the trustees are required to apply estate income to the purpose for which it is held. Ms. Farr directed that the trust directly benefit the town of Brandon and be used by it for purposes she has set forth. The town of Brandon exists as a legal entity. In this context, it does not exist amorphously or in an ill-defined manner, as when we may casually use terms such as community or residents or townspeople. Rather, the town of Brandon exists as the duly constituted local government, chartered and empowered to act as a Vermont municipal corporation. Shirley Farr made generous provision for support of many endeavors. Had she intended to support other Brandon organizations, she could have, and in fact she did, in naming the Brandon Free Public Library as another beneficiary. No indication can be found of her desire to support amateur theater productions, musical performances, or after-school activities. These are all worthy of our support, but there's nothing in the trust authorizing support from the trust. We will have to find other ways to raise money for them if we value them. The trustees cannot elect to distribute money from the trust, no matter how deserving they deem the recipient, if Ms. Farr's bequest does not speak to that purpose. The trustees must honor the intentions of Ms. Farr and follow her directives assiduously. And specific to my point in addressing you this morning, the trustees must not distribute money from the trust unless the town of Brandon itself, the legal entity that is the unit of local government, requests the funds. What I'm asking of the trustees is a fundamental reordering of what their role is. I submit that your role is to manage with prudence the funds entrusted to you, keep them safe, optimize the return, and make them available to the town of Brandon when and only when the town of Brandon and only the town of Brandon requests funds for a purpose identified in Ms. Farr's will. The trustees' proper role is not to be arbiters of what local project may or may not meet their personal approbation. This is important because only the town of Brandon exists to serve every taxpayer, every resident, every family living under its jurisdiction without limitation of benefit as is the case with any other entity requesting funding. The town of Brandon further functions to protect public health and the natural environment through its wastewater collection and treatment system, the most costly operation of the town and the largest infrastructure investment it owns. All other entities are limited in scope to their mission. They all exist to serve some subset of the community. Most, if not all of them, are at least in part governed by individuals not elected by the voters. The town of Brandon's scope of mission is the only one entirely universal in its application. Every person living in Brandon benefits from the decisions made by the democratically elected select board and the services delivered by its professional staff, its volunteer committees, and supported by the capital investments the town of Brandon has made for the general welfare of all who live here. I do not expect you to respond to this assertion immediately. If I were advising you, as I am statutorily empowered and required to advise the select board, I would actually advise you against responding immediately. However, because you are a board of 3, Vermont open meeting law provides that no 2 of you can confer on this outside a warned public meeting. I would request that the trustees call a future public meeting after you have individually had an opportunity to consider the town's position, which is that only the town of Brandon itself is eligible for funding from the Shirley Farr Legacy. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Seth. Could I just ask you for a point of clarification? So are you suggesting that all requests to the trust funnel through the town of Brandon?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be
at minimum.
which body would that be specifically?
Well, in a town manager form of government, it would come through the town manager.
Through you.
Yes, I want to be clear. I'm not interested in asserting power or trying to gather power unto myself. I think, though, that and I haven't consulted attorney, but I think that her direction really seems to say the town is the beneficiary, and the town is a thing it's more specific than the way we casually talk about the town.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public have any comment or question?
Good morning, Brett Bueller. I think Seth summed it up. I don't feel that these distributions you folks have made have served the taxpayers of Brandon well. I think it hasn't honored Shirley Farr's will, her wishes, and it hasn't served us as taxpayers. And really, I think you all should resign. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Claire Stone. I've been a volunteer in town since I moved here in 2019. I care a great deal about the people of this town, particularly those that don't have enough money to care for their kids, heat their homes, buy groceries, that are always under pressure and stress. We got wind of VCC and the school board, and we broke our asses to get the word out, because I speak from my heart when I say that felt like the most shady deal I've seen in this town or anywhere I have lived. And I come from Chicago, where everybody is a crook. But you guys, to me, don't fall far from that. Getting 10 acres of land for VCC that really doesn't exist and calling it a community center was crap. And I take pride, as well as other people in this town, for getting the word out and having standing room only at Otter Valley Gym. Shame on you. And
Not
excuse me,
to interrupt you, Claire, but do you have a question for the Trust of Public Funds?
excuse me, I'm getting there. You all granted $20,000, which was reported by you, I believe, as 10,000. You're corrected twice from the audience that it was 20,000. That was by our chair and also by a community member. We have looked into what you have been doing. You haven't seen this group of people because we can't find you. It's not that we don't care. We can't find you. Your website says, call the town of Brandon. I did that. There is nothing at town hall or the town offices to connect to you. I think you have done a major disservice to the fund and to the people of this town. And I'm ashamed of what you have done. I am ashamed of what you have done. I talk to so many people in this town who have nothing, that do not understand what you are doing and who gets their hand out and gets money for stuff that serve them and not the extent of the town of Brandon. And I too think you should resign because you have mismanaged trust and trust in terms of money. And I personally am dedicated to watching your every move because that money matters. Nobody has a pot to pee in for the most part. If you have walked this town into the trailer parks, you will see poverty worse than in any city I have ever been. And we're going to have a $12 million gym that goes on our property taxes over my dead body. And I'm telling you that now. So we are watching and we care, and this will not continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question to you guys is, you came to the select board meeting a year or two ago when there was a request for the mosquito control district. And you guys just nailed it. You told us what the will said, what was acceptable, what wasn't. And then you turn around and granted money to this project. The part I don't understand is how you decided that that was a valid reason for the money and why you did it secretly. You needed the town's buy-in, but no one knew about it until you had to do the presentation to the school board, and then we read it in the paper. How do you expect to get our buy-in if it was just on the down low? It's like you were trying to pull something over on us. And that was another reason why people were up in arms about it. They didn't even want to listen to the project because of how you handled it. So what have you learned?
So we're the trust of public funds, not the VCC sitting here. So I just want to make sure I got your two questions because we're trying to gather all this so we can put some factual information back to the public. How was the VCC a valid award? I think is one of your questions to the trust. And then why wasn't it done more publicly? Those two questions. I just want to make sure I captured your. Thank you.
The VCC.
Correct. Yep, we're the trust of public funds.
Yes, Brett Mueller again. I'd like to request the invoice and the working papers for the feasibility trust, the feasibility study that cost the town $10,000. To see what information is in there. It should involve demographics. It should involve demand, competition, sustainability. It should have some facts in there that are important and can possibly be used by the town of Brandon. So I'd like to request that and the invoice that costs $10,000.
So invoices and the feasibility study that was done to date. Yep. The town has access to that already, but we will make sure they have it. Anyone else?
Tricia. I will admit my own trustees of public funds were doing their job. Found out some other things. I'm going to give you all the benefit of the doubt that you are all working from thought that you were doing the best for the town. You know, had some very notable positions. But the more that I looked into it and saw that those funds really were for sewer and water and sanitation, I could not connect the dots to what some of the money has been given out for. It did not relate to that at all. So question number one is, monies that were distributed, it did not fall within water, sewer, sanitation. How is that money going to be repaid to the trust? And two, how are you going to go forward to make sure that the only funds that you release are funds that the town literally is requested under the problem?
Welcome.
Should we reply? The questions now, or just the follow-up?
Yeah, I think we just
Speak to that
field all the
one.
questions, but we
Yeah.
can go ahead. I mean, the second question is basically superseded by Seth's request to have an updated legal opinion. Our last legal opinion on how the trust operates was 2019, I believe.
May of 2019.
May of 2019. So I think one of your questions superseded by that, but the second we'll follow up with.
Excuse me, I'm Janie Young, and I'm sorry that I'm very open and accessible, so I may be similarly that. In my experience with trust and fiduciary law is from other states and not Vermont. But my question is perhaps to you, if you know, or if you are not aware of it, to the town or the town's attorney, you are not an unaccountable entity. The public trust is granted to you by the Attorney General of the state. You are fiduciaries, which means that you have to hold a standard of accountability and disinterest that is above and beyond the usual responsibility that you have in any other relationship. So my question now is that there's clear malfeasance here because the wording of the trust is so clear. And your application of the funds has been so out of compliance. And from my fellow citizens, it seems that your process of granting the funds has also been extremely opaque. That there is now a question of accountability that not only suggests that you should all resign immediately, but if not, or even if you do, I think that there is some question of whether the Attorney General has responsibility here to make sure that the trust is properly staffed, and that if there is a question about the misapplication of funds, that is properly rectified by law. So my question is both to you and the town and whatever legal resources are necessary to check that out. But I think that would be served with your.
Anyone else?
I give it a shot go. Doug Bailey. First thing I'd like to say is I appreciate your efforts. Being an elected official, you're always under the eyes of the people, and people get critical and attacked, and I hope that you personally hang in there. And if anything, this last 6 months of this reminds me of a year ago with the town when our budget took 4 votes and we had a lot of our meetings got 3 times the size that they normally got with people criticizing us. So I hope you did hang strong. Take this opportunity to reboot and look at the directions of the will or whatever and do the best you can. I appreciate your work.
Hey, Doug.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn the meeting based on Seth's request to have an updated legal review of the trust done and how we receive applications, because that holds water, then we have no business receiving these applications today. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
I'm Claire Stone. I'm going to request that any business you do that's about this town needs to be open to the public. And we need to be able to be there. We would have been there a long time ago. We would have been there before the vote on the 26th of February.
Laura, do you want to outline how we notify?
Yeah, sure. So we warn these meetings in the same manner that all the other public town meetings are warned. So we notify the town manager and submit our aligned agenda. It's posted to the town manager website. It's also posted on the bulletin board in town. We also have a public Facebook page, and the intended agenda is posted there along with all of our meeting minutes. And the meeting forum has always been open to the public. So we have previously held it at other entities. So it's been held at the Whitaker Real Estate Office. It's been held at the offices of Naylor and Breen.
And why is that?
It's because we actually, oh, do you want to go ahead, Tanner?
It's just how it started. When I first joined the board, Carolyn and Tom are on, they were kind enough to lend their offices for a place for us to meet.
We
A-
have
after
a
Carol-
museum. We have town space. We have the library.
I was just answering your question if you
I
want to let me finish.
understand, but I'm not interested in excuses, and Naylor and Breen. And you all seem to have a little something going on, and I'm not going to go there with you, but we are not stupid. You do understand that.
We're happy to host our meetings
Yeah,
here. and
happy to host here.
From
Hasn't been.
A-
That whole
a-
deal in Otter Valley was a secret. There were 2 people at the meeting before that, and until we got the word out, you guys could have slipped by VCC, 10 acres, not even incorporated. Call VCC a nonprofit and put $12 million on our property taxes.
Ma'am, with all due respect, we are the trust of public funds. We are not the VCC.
Connected all together, we did what was equivalent to a genogram, and you're all connected.
I'd
So
like to I'd like to clarify because
keep going.
I actually am not affiliated with the VCC. I've never attended any of the meetings. And I just want to get back to your original question. You also asked about the public meetings. I also just want to make a point of clarification that the meetings were held in person, and we also had both Teams and Zoom options in the past. And our yearly reports and all of our summaries were submitted previously through every town year report.
How about your Facebook page? So just, it's something from February 20th of this year that says that $5,200 was given to the Brandon Reporter for delivery. It's 5,000 to Forestdale Cemetery Association for storm damage. I think it's at that. $2,000 to Phoebe Hoop Cleanup, $4,156 for tech programs at Brandon Free Public Library, $2,500 to Brandon Toy Project for Dolly Parton Imagination Library, and $2,000 to Brandon Energy Committee to help with construction of a second tool shed. So other than the cemetery storm damage, can you explain how those other gifts to what the
So
purpose
all
of
of
that
our
fund is?
awards thus far align with the May 2019 legal review that we had done for how the trust should be deployed. We will honor Seth's request and have that legal review updated.
But
It-
what that said all those things had anything to do with
They all
with
fall
sewer
within,
and-
it's not just sewer and water that the 2019 legal review came back with. And
Did
we're gonna provide all of this information to the town. We've already provided a draft to Seth. We're gonna update that with your questions, so you
So-
guys can all have a copy of that.
gave out in
Yep.
just
We actually, I think, went back
Two.
5 years. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
and that will be for
Correct.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. Correct. Because we'd like to try to dispel a lot of the myths and fallacies that are out there.
I'd also just like to make a comment that we're talking a lot about water and sewage and sanitation. And one of the big bullets in the last will and testament is funding for Brandon, not otherwise provided for by taxation. So betterment of Brandon, not otherwise provided for by taxation is a bullet of the last will and testament. So that was embedded in your question right there.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Sorry.
No,
The legal review, was it done by an expert in trust? By an attorney that deals?
The attorney we hired was Jim Leary. I don't know if he's an expert in trusts, but I can ask him.
This is a trust. And did it go before the Attorney General for approval, this review?
No, I don't believe the last time the trust had a legal review prior to us requesting one was 1960.
I think in 1960 and then again in 1975.
So we had a concern. And that's why we asked Jim to do an updated review of the trust.
Sewer and sanitation, is pretty self-explanatory. I don't understand why it needed a review. It's not an arcade.
It is not the only thing. It's not the only thing listed.
Primary.
Correct.
Secondly, your meetings are so irregular, and who would ever find them, really? And is Thursday morning at 8:30 really considered an open meeting? People work.
Do you have a question, Brent, on that?
Well, is that considered an open meeting? Thursday at 8:30 in the morning is not really conducive to folks that are employed.
You have a recommendation?
An open meeting should be in the evening when people can attend it, and it should be in a public place.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm actually gonna allow Vicki Disorda. She's had her hand raised for a second. Go ahead, Vicki.
Yes, my name is Vicki Disorda, and my question is for the board chair. There have been a couple of references to the VCC, and you keep saying that you're not the VCC, that you are the Board of Trustees. However, I recognize the board chair as the individual who presented at Otter Valley representing the VCC. And by giving the VCC money from the trustees and being on both boards, wouldn't that, sir, be a direct conflict of interest?
The VCC was not even a contemplated thing when the trust received the application for the feasibility study for a community center. The VCC was determined and came to light after that fact, and I joined that group and volunteered my time to participate in that.
I'd also like to add a point of clarification that the original fund request that came was submitted by the Otter Valley Activities Association. So
So maybe you can tell us actually who they are, where they're another mystery, and you did represent VCC. You can say whatever you want. There were 300 to 500 people in that gym. We all saw you stand up. We all saw what you said. We all saw you, excuse me, waive the $15 a month and the 300 people, like you were in charge and had the ability to do that. So you can't speak from both sides of the case. Thank you.
Right, and
With all due respect, I'm not. I was requested to stand up in front of, as you described, the lynch mob because nobody else wanted to. I'm just using your term from this morning, but I was the one that would.
That word this morning. You do not sit there and put words in my mouth. I don't care who you are. You're very cocky up there. You think you have all the answers. This room wants you gone. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So don't put words in my mouth.
Claire,
I'll
I
see
feel
that.
as if you're being extremely disrespectful.
I am, because I'm pissed. And you were dishonest. You're getting what is due.
I have a quick follow-up on what I was getting at before, if you don't mind. The conflict of interest policy in the town of Brandon clearly states that even an appearance of a conflict of interest needs to be made known. So it seems that at some point, it should have come out that there was at least an appearance of conflict of interest. Thank you.
Before I next, I would just like to point out that also I believe there is a motion on the table that we will wish to
Question, Courtney? I made the motion. You want to call it the question?
Oh, call it the question.
Call the motion to question.
Yes, I'd like to call the motion to question.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.